Welcome to the last episode of Students, Scientists, and Stakeholders. This is our second series, the 2022 and now 23 faculty series, where we are connecting with the faculty members on our grant to talk to them about their experiences, not only working within the center, but how they got started on their research interests, what their mentoring experiences are like, and just all around what they think is happening in the STEM industry. Today, believe it or not, you are already listening to your guest. I am Dr. Tyree, and I've been hosting this last series. In episode 1, we talked to Dr. William Stockwell of UTEP. In episode 2, we talked to Dr. Thomas Gill of UTEP. And in episode 3, we spoke with Dr. Joseph Wilkins of Howard University. And what makes me a little different on this grant is that I am a part of what we call the SBE arm, which stands for Social, Behavioral, and Economics. And we are a little different because we really do focus on sort of the activities that impact public daily life. How weather, how NOAA's missions really impact you as U.S. citizens. And for me, I got connected with the grant over 10 years ago from Dr. Rochelle Ford. She was in partnership with Vernon Morris at the time, and she was in kind of this transition from the Department of Journalism moving over into the dean's office. And like so many of my mentors who were on my dissertation committee, she was always looking out for me, always looking at opportunities that might tie into what I was doing or my expertise or my growth. And one of the opportunities she placed literally in my lap was being a part of what was then the NCAS grant. And honestly, it has been life-changing, from my ability to learn so much about the STEM field to an increased opportunity for mentoring and research and just overall connections in academia. And so I would be remiss if I did not say that the phenomenal Dr. Rochelle Ford continued her academic success from moving from Howard to Syracuse to Elon, and now she is the president of Dillard University and will be undergoing her official confirmation in January 2023. So the entire Howard University community is very proud of her, and I am first in line for that. But one of the reasons why she connected me is because I teach a course called Capcom Lab. In this course, it is what is our capstone course. We are accredited by NCAS-M, and how we prove to this governing body that our students who are matriculating through this incredible journey know what they're supposed to know, have obtained the skills that they're supposed to obtain here at Howard University. We have this course, and for us, in this course, there are public relations as well as advertising students. We have real life clients, from government agencies to for-profits to nonprofits to entrepreneurs to literally individuals who are looking to start up a new company. And we talk to them, we do our research, we do our SWOTs, we develop full-scale communications or strategic communications plans. We create all of the tactics, we implement all those tactics, and then we evaluate at the end of the semester. It is a whirlwind for those students, and they are usually, by the time I teach them in the spring, looking to graduate in that May. So really, this is their foray into what it's like to really have a job. What they're producing is used. It's a great moment for them to kind of flex those muscles that have been usually pretty theoretical in the classroom. And because of this NCAS, an NCAS-M grant, we've been able to service the center as well as NOAA. And I cannot tell you how amazing it's been for my students to actually create tactics that have been implemented by a federal government agency. And this has been happening literally since fall 2013. I'm going to rattle a couple of little projects off to you, but there are so many that we've done. In like fall 2013, we did some messaging, general messaging for the National Weather Service. In fall 2014, we focused on NOAA's tsunami program. Spring 2014, we focused on heat warnings. We did that again in summer 2014. Spring 2015, we helped out with some packaging of their national climate meeting. I remember that. We were looking at logos and what the conference booklet should look like. Spring 2015, I remember this, the students were working with Voyage to Discovery, and it was looking at the African-American impact kind of in this oceanic space. Some of the products that the students created were so vibrant, so beautiful. Fall 2015 and summer 2015, we did more branding for just the center. Sometimes we have to go back and kind of look to see what the center is producing, what type of communications we're sharing with the public about who we are and what we do. So we often take a moment to do that. Summer 2016, we had a fabulous campaign working with NOAA we called it WOW for short, but it was the Women of Weather. And it looked at the phenomenal professionals within NOAA who were women, and we highlighted them. Spring 2017, we did a Beat the Heat campaign, which it sounds exactly like what it's titled. We were helping just U.S. citizens really, really find ways to stay cool in the summer. You know, heat can be deadly. So it was important that NOAA kind of work through some very public messaging for that time of the year, and we helped. There's something called the Eros Tour, where literally students and faculty members from NCAS and then NCAS-M go on a boat for 40 days, 40 nights. They do all types of experiments. It is a federal government large-scale ship. Some of the pictures and experiences that come out of that are not only life-changing, but pretty phenomenal to share with just everyday people like me and you. So we focused on that in summer 2017, as well as in 2020. In 2018, we helped with another NOAA conference, the EPPMSI conference that was actually held at Howard University. So students really got a chance to understand what it was like to event plan on a very large scale. It was great. And in 2019, we did something very unique, I think. Again, it was one of those moments where we hit reset, looked at the communications coming out of the center, but we wanted to say, what would we say to a federal government worker or politician who had no idea what we do and what we've done? So we created an EPK or toolkit that kind of gave some very basic information about who we are and what we do. So if we were ever on the Hill, we could kind of pass that out. It was, you know, all the way down from the information inside to the folder that held it. It was pretty phenomenal. And spring 2022, we did the June Bacon-Bursey internship program. She was one of the first Black female meteorologists in the country, and NOAA has an internship program in her name, and they were announcing it in the spring. So that's Capcom, a whirlwind I know to even talk about, but it really does tell you that we have been working, my students in particular, with NOAA, with the center for over a decade, helping build messaging and tactics that are forward facing to really help individuals, you know, from, you know, staying cool to, you know, obtaining money for school to just understanding, you know, who we are as a center and NOAA's overall mission. So in addition to Capcom, I do some other things. I do website content when it's necessary, whether revising it or working with my students to revamp it to make sure it's no more user-friendly. I've written some blog posts. I've developed tactics like fact sheets. I manage the social media for the center, which usually is just the Twitter and Facebook. Twitter and Instagram. We used to have a Facebook, but that kind of got lost. And most people are really who are, I think, student aged are really mostly on Twitter and Instagram. I have done some other kind of cool, innovative things as well. There was a Girl Power program out of Johns Hopkins University, and I was able to kind of be there and share some information about the center and just really see girls interested in STEM and talk to them about this program that maybe they could do when they get to college. And it's never too early to kind of reach back or reach forward, maybe is probably a better term, to really get girls interested in science. And I think, again, I haven't talked about who I am as a professional, but as you can hear, I am a strategic communicator. I am a social media professional. And that's kind of the expertise I bring to the center. I initially went to undergrad at Morgan State University. I actually went for broadcast journalism. Journalism was always kind of something I loved as a small child. Instead of going out to play, some days I would be sitting next to my mom watching the 6 o'clock news. I was just so engulfed in who they were as professionals. Back in those times, my mother would get the newspaper twice a day. I live in Baltimore, so she would get the Morning Sun in the morning, literally, and then coming home in the evening, we would get the Evening Sun. The Sunday newspaper was a big deal. And so news really was a huge part of my upbringing, including, of course, just media and music, which also plays out in my research. But through that experience, trying to become a broadcast journalist, I swung over to print journalism to really, hone in on my journalism skills. And being a print journalist, I really learned about the public relations field, and I eventually transitioned to PR after I graduated from college and had done some more reporting. And that's kind of where I situated myself for more than a decade, honing in on those communication skills, building on those writing and research skills that I obtained in undergrad. During that kind of decade plus years, I earned a master's degree in publications design. And eventually, like most people do, they look at what could be your second act in your professional career. And I had wanted to teach. I love to teach. And I was given an opportunity to do so by one of my undergrad mentors, Dr. Alan Kennedy at Morgan State University. He gave me an opportunity to teach an intro to PR class, which of course was my profession at the time. And I absolutely loved it. Fast forward a little bit more, and I'm able to obtain another adjunct position at Howard University. And at that point, I absolutely knew that teaching was something that I wanted to do long term, obtain my PhD from Howard University, and how I started this podcast with Dr. Rochelle Ford. She was transitioning again out of her position as a public relations professional in the Department of Journalism at Howard University, completely serendipitous that I was graduating at that moment, and I was able to interview and obtain that position. And that is how I got here. So I wanted to just kind of give you my backstory, which would have probably been better spent at the beginning of this podcast. But I did want to say it now because that is kind of some of the presentations that I offer to students as a part of the grant. Forgive me. Every summer I do kind of how to communicate your research and how to brand yourself on social media presentations to students. I've been tapped to do similar types of presentations to NOAA officials in specific programs as well. So I bring this kind of background of public relations, background of strategic communications, research perspectives in social media, teaching in social media, all that to bear kind of as I work on this grant. And what has been kind of this wonderful, I think, circular movement within my career and this grant is that we do have this amazing ability to mentor students. And while I usually don't have students attached to me, every semester or every year, I do have this opportunity often to connect with students. So again, another one of my mentors at Howard University, who was in the doctoral program, was Dr. Stroman. She is one of the phenomenal kind of members of this SBE unit. It's, of course, our fearless leader, Dr. Tyree Adams Fuller. It's Dr. Carolyn Stroman. It was Vernon Morris, who, of course, was our fearless leader prior to Dr. Tyree Adams Fuller taking over. And then, of course, Haydar Kerbin is a part of kind of this SBE unit. But Dr. Stroman was Letitia Williams' doctoral advisor, and she pulled me in as a member of her committee, and it was wonderful to really see Letitia's work. But more importantly, Dr. Williams ended up being hired at NOAA, which of course is a big part of the grant, which is creating that pipeline to NOAA and NOAA's workforce, which was phenomenal. Dr. Adams Fuller, again, had a thesis student, Michelle Wright, in 2019, and I worked on her committee as well. So again, there's all these moments to kind of mentor students, and I will tell you that I worked with two other groups of students. I had a book titled Social Media Culture and Identity with Dr. Kubuma Langme out of my department. And in that, we were able to work with, again, Leticia again, Michelle Doval, Brendel Mills, who, again, is my colleague now, but was a student way back in 2017. And we did a chapter in my book called How Minorities Use Social Media During Weather-Related Crises, Results of a U.S. National Weather Survey, which, of course, we had those results as a direct correlation to our funding through this center. And, of course, I also did a study with another one of my former students, Marcus Hill, and it was titled Hurricane Katrina 10 Years Later, a qualitative meta-analysis of communications and media studies of New Orleans Black community. And again, because I am this social scientist, I'm able to really tap into what I love to study, which is media and social media, and bring that to bear on the grant, which is pretty amazing. And again, another one of my students, Dr. Neosha Ponder, who her dissertation was actually about relationships in Facebook, but she actually ended up taking a position on this grant after she graduated, and she was the data and communications manager. And in summer 2019, we did this amazing 3-month social media campaign where we looked at what were kind of the pillars that NOAA focuses on. And we did this, 7-8 week campaign where we looked at tornadoes, lightning, heat, drought, hurricanes, and flooding. And we put out these social media messages on our NCAS News platforms that really tied back into NOAA and NOAA related missions. And I think one of the most important things for me to finish up with is that this very podcast that I'm doing right now was a result of my connections to a student, Cameron Billette, out of the Department of Media Journalism and Film. It was one of those magical moments where I was actually able to work with an undergraduate student. And I said to her, okay, so this is the grant. This is what we do. You know, what are your skills? What do you do best? And we brainstorm. And she said, you know, I love doing podcasts. I have my own podcast. I said, stop right there. As a social media professor, I actually teach podcasts to my students. We talk about the importance of them, you know, how we can share messaging. We can really tie to individuals' interest, and they're portable and shareable, and they're free, and they're all over. And I was like, we've got to do this. And she actually did the first series. It was in 2021. There were 5 episodes. And that series focused on students. And we had Alicia Triplett, Tisha Copeland, Onika Uduye, Alexandria Grayson, Kendall Parks. They were our guests for that first episode, which you can find on SoundCloud and YouTube. And the funny thing about it is, after she had completed the actual hard part, which is the production of the podcast, we actually moved the promotion of the podcast, including the development of the logo, development of all the sites, to a summer Capcom group who developed all of the campaign to share it. So again, this is kind of my journey on the grant. It's very different from some of the scientists. But I do think, and I would hope, that I bring value to the grant by really doing what is necessary, which is communicating what we do, communicating how we do it, and really helping to share our success stories. I think so many of us in the academic field, you know, we produce, we put it on our CV, you know, maybe we tweet about it, maybe, and then we go to the next project. We don't really revel in those successes like we should. And I think because of my work on the grant, I help share those successes. I help communicate what we do. And I help, hopefully, the public and NOAA understand the importance of what we do. So I feel like I've been talking for a long time, but I hope you enjoyed this last episode. We have talked to so many phenomenal faculty members, and really it is the faculty that helps move the grant along, in addition to our staff. But we do help with research. We do help with mentoring. We help make sure that what we promise to NOAA when we submit those grant applications really happen. So with that said, I'm going to wrap up and say thank you so much for listening to this series of the fellow series, I should say, of students, scientists, and stakeholders. You can follow us on Instagram and Twitter at NCAS News. You can also listen to past podcasts, all in the 2022 faculty series and all in the 2021 fellow series on YouTube and SoundCloud. Thank you so much for your time today and your attention, and we will talk to you soon.